We were talking about the editions, and then we talked about licenses. So editions and licenses are two different things. That is the first one that I want to tell you, that edition is different from license. Okay, edition is meant for the organization, and license is meant for an individual. Okay, and then you have different types of licenses also. So it's not that for a particular type of edition you will always have to take the same license. There are different types of licenses, right? For an example, there are there are a number of licenses which are there, but I will just give you a very simple example. You remember I told you yesterday that Salesforce comes up with a few pre-installed apps or pre-built apps which have been designed by Salesforce, and then there is this Force.com platform on which you can develop your own app, or you create your own app, right? Now Salesforce gives you a choice. In case you want to use this app, then you have to pay a certain amount. If you want to use this app, then you have to pay a certain amount. For example, we talked about an edition which is called Enterprise Edition. Enterprise Edition yesterday we were talking about. So if you want to use the Salesforce pre-built apps for Enterprise Edition, you will have to pay per user $125 per month per user. Okay, so this is what you will have to pay for Enterprise Edition if you want to use the Salesforce standard apps. However, if you say that I have a few users and those users will not use any of the standard apps, they will only use the apps that have been built on Force.com. Okay, let's say out of a team of 100, you say that 20 people will only use the custom apps that we have designed in-house. They will not use Salesforce designed apps. So logic says that the pricing should be different there, and it should be lesser than this pricing, because we are just using their platform and the server space. We are not using their application. So there the pricing will be different. So for that, it is called the Force.com apps. They just need to access Force.com app, and for that they will need to pay $25 per user per month. Right? So it's the same Enterprise Edition, but the licenses are different. So this is a full CRM license, and this is just a platform license, which gives you access to use the platform apps, the ones that you have developed. Got it? So this way, there are multiple licenses. So once you decide on the edition and you decide on the license, now the question can be that, okay, fine, is this platform license available on all the editions? No, this is not available in Contact Manager because there is no concept of customization. This is not available in Group Edition, and this is not also available in Personal Edition. So Personal, Group and Contact you cannot do much, but yeah, Professional, Enterprise and Unlimited Edition, we have that option of taking or choosing different licenses for different users. Got the concept? Now once you have decided to go for a particular edition and go for a particular license, then what is the next thing that you'll have to do? I just want you to understand the process. So once you've decided on this, you just have to tell Salesforce, let's say you are a company and you have taken you have decided to go for Salesforce, right? You say that, okay, fine, I have 100 users and I want Enterprise Edition. And then you also decide on for 100 users, for all of them you need the full license, or you need the platform license for some of them. You decide on that. Let's say you say that for 80 you need full license. Full license, when I say, I mean the full CRM license, including the standard apps. And for 20 of them you just need the platform license. So what Salesforce will do, it will generate an invoice for you for these 100 users, it is generally an agreement of 1 year that you sign with Salesforce. So they will charge you for 1 year, though the pricing is mentioned per month, but they will charge you for 1 year at a time. Okay. So they will bill, create an invoice for you for these 100 users for 1 year, and they will give you the invoice. Okay. The moment you make the payment, they will create one license for you. Okay, and make one license, one initial license or one user they will create. The way you created it yesterday, that is the first user. And by default, this is the system administrator. So let's say, we are a team, and we have approached Salesforce, and they first of all they created a license for Santosh. So they will just create one license and give it to us. So it depends on us. We will tell them that, okay, fine, create it with this username, password and email ID. They will create with that particular thing and give it to us. So let's say Santosh is the one for whom the license got created first of all. So the first license or the first user by default is system administrator. Okay. Now the system administrator will have the access of going and creating more licenses and users and all. At a later point of time, it's not necessary that this person has to be system administrator throughout. Once he creates more users, he can make someone else as the system administrator, and from there the other person can take control. Fine. I just want you to understand the process. So this is how it works. So yesterday we have done the same thing. The only difference is that we have not paid money to Salesforce and we ourselves created it. So okay. Did I ask you to share your developer edition login ID password with me? I want one of you to share your developer edition login ID password with me. Whatever we do in the sessions, I will be doing in that particular person's login ID and password, and every day I will be using the same account. Any one of you who does not have a very confident about the security aspect in our last session? I think someone asked this question. So do you see, every time you try to log in on a new computer now, I was using Santosh's credentials to log in into my computer. Every time you try to log in on a new computer, it asks you for a security verification code and all. Okay. So, Santosh, is this something that you created yesterday, this login, or how is it? Was it created a week back?
I created like a week ago, not yesterday.
Yesterday you did not create a login ID password?
Yesterday you did not create a login ID password? No, I already created like a week ago. I was trying to do something on this.
Very nice. But did you notice? Can you please put your microphone on mute? Yeah. So did you notice that this is just a 21-day remaining trial thing, and this is not even a developer edition? Which edition is this? Professional edition. So this is something which is not required. Got that? So please create a developer edition. So yesterday whatever I was discussing, go back to that sessions video, see the steps and create a developer edition. We are not going to do anything on this trial version because it will expire in 21 days, and professional edition does not have a lot of features which will be required in our training. Fine. Okay. So anyone else who can share the login ID password quickly? Or else give me 1 minute. So this is the edition that you created in your last session. right? This is what we have created. Now once we have done this thing, the first user is created. So whatever is your name appears here and you are the first user. So when you purchase an actual license from Salesforce, that is that is where they create a first user for you and they give it to you. The first user by default is made as the system administrator, which means that user will have all the rights. System administrator usually can do everything on Salesforce. Whatever is possible, system administrator can do it till we do not go and restrict him. Right? So by default, system administrator can almost do everything. Now what happens is the system administrator login is created. Now for creating more users, you just have to go to setup, manage users. Let's say you want to create multiple users and all. You just need to go to manage users, click on users, and you have that option of the list. You have the list of other users who are already there. So as of now there is only one user. This is a chatter expert, which is not a valid user actually. So only one user you will get to see, that is you yourself. Then you have the option of creating more users. How many more users can you create? That depends on how many licenses you have purchased. For developer edition, I told you yesterday, you can create 2, right? So you have the option of creating one more user with the full CRM license. Got that? Clear? Okay, so that is it. So from here you go and create the user. Okay. Now once you have created the user, there are a few things that we will get into. We will just talk about the basic setup. So first of all, let's talk about the personal setup part, right? So the moment you create yourself as a user or you create more users, they need to go and do the personal setup. So we have already talked about how do we deal with the personal setup part. Where do we check for the personal setup? We go to that person's name, my settings, right? So whoever is the user can click on his name, go to my settings and do the personal setup. Now personal setup is available to everyone. So when I say you will create multiple users, all these 100 users, 50 users, everyone will have the option of personal setup. So personal setting everyone will be able to do, and that is from this my settings. So personal information change, password and all those things can be changed from here. You can change your language and time zone. Okay. So you can define your language, which language you prefer. If you don't want English, you use some other language. So these languages are also there which we cannot read. French and all those, right? So if you want to see the information in some other language, you can choose that. If you have a different time zone, if you do not work on this Pacific Daylight Time, you work on some other time zone, you can just select that thing, that option you have. Okay, so these things user can do himself. For these things he does not require the help of an administrator. Okay, I'll tell you what exactly an administrator comes, where exactly an administrator comes into picture. But so far we are focusing on understanding the personal setup. So these small things, changing your name, password, user name, email ID, these things you can do yourself. You, when I say you, I mean end user. Okay. Then the language and time zones can also be changed by the user. However, the administrator also has the right to go and do it on your behalf. As I showed you, the administrator will have the complete list. As you can do it from your personal setting, administrator can always go into the setup and change it for you. From the manage users, administrator can see all the users. And he has the option of editing the users. Got that thing? So administrator can also make these changes. Now that's about the basic personal setup required. Then there is another thing, password and all those things is fine. There's one more thing which is called security token. So in addition to whatever things we talked about, the language, the time zone, and the password and the security username, in addition to that, there is one more thing which is called the security token. Okay, so security token is what? It is an automatically generated key that you must add to end of your password in order to log in into Salesforce from an untrusted network. Now, what is this network which is untrusted? Untrusted network is, before we understand untrusted network, let us understand what is a trusted network. So what happens is Salesforce is accessible through cloud, right? Through internet, it is on cloud. Now anyone can access from anywhere, right? So there can be situations where you start feeling that people who have the login ID password, they can also go back home and misuse your Salesforce, right? You don't want them to log in into Salesforce from home. You don't want them to log in into that from a cyber cafe, right? You just want them to log in when they are at workplace. So in that case, what you can define a range of IP addresses to be used while logging into Salesforce for your organization. So that option is there. We will talk about that. But the point is that you can define a trusted range of IP addresses. Okay. Now anyone who tries to log in outside that range, that is called untrusted range. So there's a trusted range that you define, and then there is this range outside that, or any IP address outside that range, that becomes untrusted network, right? So if you are logging into an untrusted network, let's say you are allowed to log in within your company and you are logging in from home, you again might have requirement, because Salesforce is meant for that purpose only. It is on internet and it is on cloud, so you might need to access it from somewhere else as well. So in case you have to do that, then you have to use this additional security password, security token, and this is a system generated thing. You do not generate it. I mean, you do not define what your security token will be. It is a system generated thing. Got this? So if you see here, how do you set your security token? You just need to go to My Settings. This is something which an administrator cannot do on your behalf. This is something that you yourself will have to do. Go to Personal and click on Reset My Security Token. So the moment you click on Reset My Security Token and click on Reset Security Token, this will reset the security token for you, right? When to use this? When you know that you are logging in from a network which is not trusted, you have to combine your security token with your password, and you will be able to log in. Clear? Is it simple to understand? Is it difficult? How is it? So we understand the concept of personal setup and the security token? Yep, tell me.
So every time when you're using the public internet access, that you need to create a security token and reuse it?
No, you don't have to create or generate a new security token every time. You can use the same security token till the time you do not go and reset it. So today if you have generated it, if you are not resetting it, till you can continue to use it.
For example, let's say just today I went to the just Starbucks and I used for 1 hour. Then I came back home. Then again, tomorrow I'm planning to go back to the same place.
Use the same security token.
So I can use the same security token.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Santosh, I will not click on the reset security token here because this is a different user, this developer edition. So that is the reason why I was suggesting you guys to have a simpler password and share the login ID password with me so that we are able to do those things, right? So you guys can click on your developer edition reset security token. The moment you click on that, you will receive an email in your registered email ID with the security token, which is going to be a 21-digit alphanumeric key. Right, so reset security token, the moment you click on that, it sends you an email with the security token, and then you'll have to take the security token and combine it. So that is the solution. I mean, I want you to understand that whenever you require that kind of a thing, this is how it works. If you have defined a trusted IP range for your company, and then one of your users need to go to the client location and work there, then what do? Do you change the complete trusted network setting and all those things? No. So what you'll have to do there is you just have to go and take the security token, or ask that user to generate a security token, take it. Okay, so that is the thing. Now we're clear on this part. Now let's move ahead.
Can you please repeat on the part?
Repeat on?
Can you please repeat? Yeah, can you please repeat on that thing when we work on trusted networks? How does it work on trusted networks? Say if I log in for the first time in a trusted net with a company network, so do I have to reset my security token then, or like?
Trusted network. Please mute your microphone. Yeah. So trusted network, there is no concept of security token because it is already trusted. The concept comes when you are working or trying to log in on an untrusted network. So an IP address which is not included in your trusted range of IP addresses. So that is where security token will be required. So if you know that you are going to log in from a place where which is not included in your trusted range, then take the security token, generate the security token and use it. Alright, fine. Now let us go into the next thing. Yeah, any questions, anyone? Yeah, Ramkrishna.
So as a company, how can a company stop its employees using Salesforce outside the trusted network?
By defining the trusted network and not giving them the security token.
Oh, but you are saying that the user himself can go and create a security token, right?
Yeah, so that is the thing. If the user is creating a security token and if the user is logging in, you will know, you will get to know. There are options of doing auditing and all those things, right? So if the user creates a security token on all those things, you will be aware of that, right? So if you say no to them and still you see that someone has logged from there, you can go straight away and stop them. That is one. Second thing, we also have an option. So IP range is one thing. You also have an option of restricting your users by the time that people will not be able to log in after 6. So I will come to that part. So by that clause also you can restrict them from working outside and after the office hours, that sort of thing, right?
Okay.
So I was just about to come into that particular slide. So security token thing we have understood. We have understood the concept of untrusted network and all those things. So what other things happen in the security side? Let us talk about this when you are trying to log in into Salesforce. Yeah, this is the slide. Security and identity confirmation. So this slide talks about what happens when someone tries to log in into Salesforce. What kind of a security process goes in the back end, right? Before you understand this slide, let me just tell you a little about what security steps you can take from your side. So because this complete data is on cloud, then what happens is, yesterday, as I think one of you were asking me that if the data is on cloud, will it not be a difficult thing for the company to maintain the security of the data and all that stuff, and which is correct to a great extent. Because what happens is, if this is something which is accessible through internet, there are two things. One is you are concerned about the external users getting the login ID password, and secondly you are also concerned about the internal users. So people who have the login ID password, they can also go back and misuse it. That's correct, right? So a lot of companies do have this concern, they do have this challenge that, okay, fine, what if the employees who have the login ID password, they start misusing it, they start using it for the wrong reasons, they go back home and take out all the data, that sort of thing. So a lot of companies do not focus more on this, or they do not emphasize more on this, but there are companies who are concerned about this part also, that what if the employee is actually misusing, and that is a valid concern also. Okay, so there are two things which you can do. You can define IP range, okay, and you can also define login time. You can restrict your users within the IP range, and you can restrict your users within the login time. So let's say your office works from 9 to 6. You can restrict your users to log in within 9 to 6 only, so that they are not allowed to log in after 6. And then you can, so this is basically restricting them by time, and this is restricting them by location. Okay. Now, if you have put...
Okay, question. Sorry for the interruption.
Yep.
For example, let's say you can set it by individual user, or we can set up by all the users, like you can log in as an admin and set up all the users, like restrict the time like 9 to 6 only.
You can do it for all. You can do it for set of users also, not for individual user, but set of users. Right? And how that set of users is created, that is again something which we will discuss. Right? So as of now, let us understand it in a way that we can do it for all the users, or we can do it as for a particular set of users, or we can define different time ranges for different set of users. Let's say there is a customer support team which works from 7 to, there is a customer support team which works from 7 to 10 PM, and there is a sales team which works from 9 to 5 PM. So you can have different time restrictions defined for different set of users, right? That thing can be done.
And also can be set up as time zones. Even though they are 7 to 10 customer service, some people are in Pacific time, some people are
that is, yes,
Eastern
it
time.
can be done. Yeah, that thing also can be done. So what you can do from your side, it will be good if you try to understand all these things, imagining that you are a company and you have started using Salesforce. So I actually, try to, give you the complete overview right from the beginning, just for your understanding, so that you understand things clearly. So by now what we have talked, we talked about cloud computing, we talked about the benefits of cloud computing, then you decided to take Salesforce license. Then we talked about how do we get the licenses and all those things, right? So think as if you are the business owner, you have your CRM, you decided to go for Salesforce CRM licenses, you purchased a few licenses, now you just saw how to create your users and all those things. Now we are at a stage where you are concerned that, okay, fine, I have got licenses. Now what happens? These people will, can go and start logging in anytime from their home, and they will start using it. You genuinely will have that concern, no matter the, how old your employees are and all those things. for how long they have been working with you, but those concerns can be there, right? So two things which Salesforce allows you here are, you can restrict them by the IP address and you can restrict them by the login time. Okay, these two things you can do. So when you do these two things, how does this entire process work? So when someone tries to log in, which one is checked first of all? Let us understand this in this slide. So this slide talks about this part, and even before I get into slide, both these things are optional. Okay, none of these is a mandatory. Both of them are optional. You may or may not utilize this thing. Okay, now let's go back to this slide and understand. So first thing, there is a login attempt which happens. Okay, the user tries to log in. The moment the user tries to log in into Salesforce, automatically does a time check. It checks for the time restriction. Is there a time restriction? And if the user is trying to log in beyond the allowed or permitted time. The user is trying to log in beyond the permitted time, outside the time range which is permitted. This time check will fail and access will be denied. Okay. If he is trying to log in beyond the time which is permitted to him, this time check fails and the access is denied. This is one. Second is, if it clears the time check, which means if he is trying to log in within the permitted time range, then what happens? It goes for the next level of check, which is the IP address check. So firstly time is checked, then it goes to the IP address check. Okay, then Salesforce will check whether you are logging in from the right IP address or not. If it is fine, if you are logging in from the trusted network, trusted IP address, if you are logging in, this test gets cleared and you are allowed to log in. So here it goes. Fine. However, if you are trying to log in from a network which is not trusted, then this check fails. Okay. But it does not deny you access as well. It gives you another chance. What is the other chance that it gives you? That's a cookies check. Cookies check you have. What is this cookies check? Internet browsing history. So even if you are trying to log in from an IP address which is not a trusted one, it will still go and do a cookies check, internet browsing history check. What is that internet browsing history check? It will go and check your computer whether you have logged in from that computer and that IP address prior to that or not. If you have done that, it clears it, it passes and login is allowed. If this cookies check also fails, then it asks you for the activation code. So still here, it does not deny access here as well. It gives you an option of activation. So it says, okay, click on the button. If you remember, you might have seen today morning your evening actually. So today when we started the session, when I asked for the login ID password from Santosh, he gave me, I put login ID password and then it asked me to get the activation code. I had to click on that button. There was an activation code which was sent to him and that is what I had to use, right? So that is the thing here. Your activation code can be generated and you can use the activation code to log in. Okay. So this is the process. This is how it works. You do the login attempt. First is time check. If it fails, access is denied. If it clears the time check, it goes to IP address check. If IP address is cleared, login is allowed. If it fails, cookies check happens. Cookies check if cleared, then also login is allowed. If it fails, then you have the option of activation. Now, can you think of a reason why it is being so flexible in terms of IP address and so strict in terms of time check? See, time check, it failed once, it denied access. For IP address, it fails, it gives you another option. It fails, it gives you another option. Can you think of a reason why is it so? Why Salesforce is so lenient in case of that IP address thing?
What if the employee can also work from home? Is that the reason?
Yeah, so
Or
employee
can
can,
other place except from office.
yeah, right. So the employee can work from home, he can work from a client location, he can work from some other place he might be required. And if you remember, I mean, the biggest advantage that we were talking about cloud computing, the biggest selling point for Salesforce is that you are flexible in location. If they become very strict and they put such kind of restrictions on IP address, that okay, if you're not in the IP address, you're not allowed to log in at all, then what happens? Then that complete advantage of being on the cloud, working on the go, being flexible in location, those things will not work, right? Then it is as good as a server which is installed in your company. That also allows you to log in from company, and this is also allowing you to log in from your company, right? So for that reason, they have given you more options to be able to work from other locations also. The trusted network is the regular network. However, you also are allowed to work from anywhere, provided you either have the security token or you have this thing. So I think someone was asking this question, that if I go to some place and work on, get a security token there, log in from, so let's say, I mean, you are working from a client location. 3 days you will be at a client office, for example. Today you went there, today you logged in using a security token, because that is not a trusted network. Tomorrow when you try to log in, even if you don't put a security token, it will allow you to log in. Why? Because of this cookies check. Today if you have logged in, that information will be stored in your cookies. Browsing history will have that. So tomorrow if you try to log in from the same location, same computer, it will not ask you for the security token. It will straight away allow you to log in. Fine. So that is the thing. So if it is at least in your browsing history, it still allows you. Okay. Even if you do not have a security token and you do not have the information in the browsing history also, there is one more option that it talks about. You can generate an activation code, receive the activation code in your email, which will be a 5-digit activation code, the way I received it from Santosh. So something like that, you can generate that activation code. This activation code is a one-time activation code. You can generate this and then you can use this. Got it?
So in this case, when you log in with my ID, so if you go by this flow chart, I have not set any time check as, I have not set any login time as such. Okay,
right.
But still it asks for activation key. So how does this process flow? You try to log in, it will time check, it passed.
Right.
It passed, then it did the IP check. The IP check may fail.
Right.
Then,
for your developer edition or any such edition, right? Especially for developer edition. Yeah. Especially for your developer edition, whenever we are talking about, because initially when you have created an account, you have not defined any IP address and all, right? So time zone, the time is also not defined, time is also not restricted, IP is also not restricted, right? By default, the system and the IP address from where this account was created, that is by default considered as the trusted network for developer edition. Okay, because you have not defined anything. You try to log in from any other place, it will ask you for the activation code. So got that concept? By default, when you create a developer edition, the system and the network that you used for creating, that is considered as the trusted. Anything outside that is considered as untrusted network, right? That is the reason why it asks you for the activation code there. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, got it.
Okay. So everyone else clear on this? Alright. So security part also has been taken care of. So we have put some security measures. You have defined the time thing and all. We will learn it further, how to define it and all. I just wanted you to understand this concept, security and identity thing. So now we understand how this thing works in the backend. Now there is one more thing that we will talk about, that is about the company setup. So we have done the personal setup, we have seen how to create users, how to set up the password, security tokens and all those things. Now there is another thing that you will be required to do, that is you will be required to do the personal setup. The company setup. So someone needs to set up the company as well, configuring the company. So company setup is setting up attributes for your company. And this is purely the role of an administrator to do it, because individuals will not be allowed to do this. Pawan, you have a question?
Actually, just now I have created my security token and I want to delete the security token. How I going to delete the security token?
Sorry, can you just repeat the question? What is that? You have created a security token, that's fine.
Just now. Correct. Yeah, I want to delete that security token. So I'm not getting any option to cancel that security token.
No, but why do you want to delete it?
No, just I'm checking, like just now I tried to create that one, and for my computer it won't ask for security reason, right? Security token, right? If suppose
security token is not, see, security token is neither created nor deleted. It can only be reset. So you just have the option of reset, then it will be set to something else. That's it. And if you don't, if you don't need it, don't use it. Why do you want to delete it? So there is no such option of deleting, fine?
So under what circumstances do we use the security?
Under what circumstances? What do we do?
Under what circumstances do we use the security key? See, I logged in my office, so I completed my work, I left for the day. So next day if I log in from somewhere else, okay, so because it's not trusted IP, it will ask for an activation key, which will come to my email. So I'll give my activation key and it allows me to log in. So far I'm good. So when do we use this security key, which is a randomly generated number?
Right. So security token. See, good question. Now, yeah. So at the time of login, if you would have given the security token, then it could wouldn't have got into all these steps. If it is security token is given, then it does not go into IP check. Then it will only do the time check, and if it clears, it will allow you to log in here. So at the login attempt, if you give the security token along with the password, it does not get into IP check, because it understands that trusted, untrusted IP address, everything is allowed. So security token, if you have provided, it does not get into this complete thing. So then you don't have to give activation code and this and all those things. So when you are aware that you are trying to log in from an outside network and you want to skip that hassle of getting an activation code, this that, straight away put the security token. Got it? Okay. So now let's go back to the configuring company setup. So let's work on the company setup. So what do we need to do in the company setup? There are a few setup changes that you will need to make to your company. There's something which is purely done by administrator. Individuals and the users do not have access to do this. Okay. So this is configuring the company. What all things do we need to set for the company? Let us quickly understand that first. So again, you have got the licenses, you have got the users working, you have set the time and all those restrictions for the security and everything, that's fine. But you also need to configure your company. So what all things do you need to configure in your company? The way you did personal setup, you also need to do company setup. Company setup has first thing which is called company info. So you need to put the company info, which has basic info. So basic info will be things like the name, address, phone number, website, these kind of things. So this is the basic info. So this is first thing that you have to set. Second is the locale info. This consists of things like the time zone for the company, language, and currency. Fine. Which currency your company deals in, which language your company uses, or the default language. If you remember, we talked about language and time zone for user as well, right? So there is an option of setting language and time zone for the user, and there is an option of setting language and time zone for company. So what we set for the company is the default language, default time zone. So if you select language as French for the company, by default every user you create will have the French language. User always have that option of going and changing it to Chinese or Japanese, whatever, right? So that is the thing. Same way, this time zone also, there is a default time zone of the company. For users you can again go and change it to some other time zone. So one is a default one, and one is what you actually allow some users to use, right? Then the licenses information. So this is something which you cannot change. This is just a read-only information for information. So let's go and see where do we find all this information. So for this company setup and company information, you will go to setup. Under administer, there is something called company profile. You need to click on this. And under that, there is this thing called company information. So just click on this part, company information link, and you will get to see this complete details of the company. So you can click on edit here to edit things. So you have the option of changing the organization details, your company's name, phone, fax, division, street, city, state, province, postal code, country, whatever, right? And all this information that you put here, this is something which is accessed by salesforce.com also. So they have access to this information, right? So if they have to contact you, they will contact you on this phone number and all that. So that is how it would work. Locale settings, define the locale language, time zone, currency, which currency you want to use. You want to use Australian dollars, US dollars, whatever you want to use. Fine. Save it. Make the changes. Save it. Save or cancel, whatever you do. Then there is a complete information related to the user licenses that you are using. Fine. So this is, as I told you, this is something which you cannot go and change, no edit option. You can just see this, right? So the Salesforce, how many licenses we have here. Don't get into too much details of this, because as I told you, there are a lot of licenses. For you to understand all the licenses, it will take a lot of time. So don't get into too much of details into all these things. We just need to understand, what we need to understand here is that Salesforce license is the full license, and we have only 2 such licenses. Out of that, one we have already used. You created one developer edition, right? So one has been used, one you still have. And there are these other types of licenses which are available, which you have got along with your developer edition, right? So how many licenses, how many you have used, how many remaining, when is the expiry date? So developer edition does not expire, as I told you. So there is no expiry date. But if you have a license which is expiring on a certain date, that expiry date will also be available here, so that you understand that, okay, fine, when are your licenses expiring and all. Got that? So complete information on your licenses, how many you have, you will get there. Okay. It also gives you this company organization detail, also gives you some information on the data space, file space. Okay. How much data space have you used and how much file space have you used? 6% of your data space has been utilized and 1% of file space has been used. So this just gives you some idea on the things. So that is about my company setup, basic information and the company information part. What else do we need to set?
Sorry. So this kind of information, this is Salesforce will set up for us, or just we need to set up once we got the license?
You will set up. I mean, Salesforce will also set it up for you, because for Salesforce you are an account of Salesforce, right? So when you get this license, they will put your company name and all those things, but you will go and set it up, properly. Okay. The phone number,
So
tax
later
number.
also, if there is any information,
You can change it anytime. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that is the basic company information. The next level of company information is where you set the financial year of the company information or the fiscal year. So when does the fiscal year start for your company? When does it end? That you have to define in Salesforce. Okay. Why do you have to define that in Salesforce? Why is the requirement there for fiscal year to be stored in Salesforce? The only reason for storing fiscal year in Salesforce is that we use Salesforce for doing reporting. We have seen that we put a lot of data into this. When the data is there, when the sales data is there, you might also need to do reporting on that. So when you generate reports, you must be aware of it that most of the reporting is done based on the financial year. This quarter, last quarter, this financial year, last financial year. So for those reporting things to be done properly, and for you to automatically do the reportings based on the fiscal year without hard coding the dates, you have this fiscal year concept. So if you define a proper fiscal year, you will be able to do the reporting easily just by defining terminologies like I need a report for this quarter or last quarter. Salesforce will automatically understand when did your last quarter start. Fine. So in the company setup only it needs to be done. Under company profile there is fiscal year, so set up company profile, fiscal year. In fiscal year you just have to define when does your fiscal year start. Does it start in April, or it starts in October or January? When does it start? So that is something that you have to define. So this is the standard fiscal year. Okay. So standard fiscal year is basically a fiscal year where you have 4 quarters, 3 months per quarter. So standard fiscal year is 4 quarters of 3 months each, right? So that is our standard fiscal year. There is another thing which is called a custom fiscal year. Now what is this custom fiscal year? Custom fiscal year is any fiscal year which has a different structure, which does not follow this 3-month structure, which follows a different structure. Some companies do have a different fiscal year structure. Some companies or some financial institutions feel that all 3 months do not have equal number of days. For that reason they talk about a 13 weeks quarter. So custom can be something where we are talking about 4 quarters of 13 weeks each. So this cannot be defined using months and all. So this depends on the weeks. 52 weeks totally in an year, right? So 13 weeks per quarter, 13 weeks per quarter kind of fiscal year, custom fiscal year is there. And there are other models for that as well, for custom fiscal year. 13 weeks per quarter. There is another model which talks about 13 periods of 4 weeks each. So in case your company, I mean, you don't have to get too much into the details of fiscal year. Let the people from finance team do it. But if you are, if you get to know that your company uses these kind of fiscal years, then only go to custom. If you know that your company uses, a straightforward fiscal year, then use a standard one and define the start month of the fiscal year. That's it. Nothing else you have to do. Okay. you need to be a little more careful while defining the fiscal year, because once you enable the custom fiscal year, it cannot be reversed. So it is irreversible. So you cannot go back to the standard fiscal year once you have selected a custom fiscal year. See, enabling custom fiscal year is not reversible. So till the time you are not very sure that your company is using something like this, then you will use this custom fiscal year. Okay, so that is about the custom fiscal year and standard fiscal year thing. Then Viksham, just hold on for some time. Okay, we are just talking about a few more concepts. Maybe 5 minutes or so we will be done. Right. So fiscal year. The next thing is business hours. So we have understood how to define the fiscal year for the company. The next thing that you will define is the business hours for the company. Why do we need to define business hours here again? This is my CRM, right? Why do I need to define business hours? It's very simple. Business hours are the time, is the time when your customer support team is available. So business hours is just defined to manage your customer support requests, right? For example, there is a ticket which a customer has raised, and that ticket needs to be resolved in let's say 10 business hours. So there is a SLA 10 or 20 business hours which have been assigned for that, right? So those 10 or 20 business hours will be Salesforce can automatically calculate those only if you have defined proper business hours. If you say that okay, fine, your team works from which time to which time, then only the calculation of these business hours can happen, right? So later on we will see this concept of auto escalation. Something which is not resolved within the defined time frame needs to be auto escalated. So that auto escalation Salesforce will be able to do only if you have defined the business hours, right? So you have option of defining multiple business hours. So you can define business hours for different teams, the sales team, the customer support team, the Indian team, the Asian team, whatever. And based on that, you can define the logics that how much time a case should be considered before it is escalated automatically by Salesforce. And then there is one more concept of defining holidays for your company setup. So holidays is where you define the days when your business hours are suspended. Holidays are the dates and time at which business hours are suspended. So your Saturday, Sunday should be marked as a holiday. Ideally, if it is counting business hours for escalating the case and all, it should not count the business hours for Sunday or Saturday, right? Because the team is not working on those days. Similarly, if you have some other, public holidays or, one-time holidays, those things also need to be marked here. So if you have defined your holidays properly, system will automatically calculate the business hours and skip the holidays. It will not calculate the business hours for the holidays, right? Please let me know if we are all clear on this.